Welcome to the Coaches Show. I'm Darrin Joins, Williamson County Schools Athletic Director, and very pleased to have some special guests here today talking about tonight's WCS matchup between Franklin and Nolensville. We've got the head coach of Franklin High School, Coach Alex Melton. And for the first time this year, but listen, he's a crafty old veteran now when it comes to this, Coach Paul Derrick of Nolensville High School. Gentlemen, appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Thanks.
Tonight's WCTV game of the week is a non-region game between Franklin and Nolensville. But, you know, I always say it's kind of special that WCS teams play that maybe aren't in the same league. We'll start with you, Coach Derrick. No playoff implications, but it's nice to have another WCS matchup.
Yeah, it sure is. Our kids are excited about, playing Franklin High School. It's a game that we played 2 years ago. Didn't get to play it last year because of the way things worked out with the way the season was going. But we're excited about having them come to our place. Excited about playing a 6A Wilco team. We know what that means, and our kids will definitely be up for it.
Coach Melton.
We're excited too. I mean, it's another WCS game for us, and it's always great competition. No matter what, 5A, 6A, it doesn't matter. And we've talked about this before. I think it's great that we all play each other. We've played Page, and I know Knowles played Page, and I just think all of us playing each other is a good thing. It's good for the schools, it's good for the communities, and it's good for Williamson County, I think.
Very well said, Coach Melton. See, Coach Derrick, Coach Melton, he's like a veteran now too. He's been on here a few times, so he knows how to sell it.
He surpassed me, that's for sure.
Coach Derrick, let me ask you this. You've got 2 overall wins, but 2 in your league, right in the thick of things for the playoffs. Obviously, you're not looking ahead. You'll be playing a different Franklin next week, Franklin County. That's obviously a big one. But does that get you sort of ready for that game next week, and then also for the playoffs, which are looming?
Yeah, honestly, I think the schedule we played, hopefully has prepared us for the playoffs. We played a very challenging schedule this year, been competitive in most of our games, had a chance to win a few of them, just came up short a couple times. But, you play a tough schedule like that, I think it's gonna prepare you for the playoffs. And as you mentioned, next week we'll be playing for a 3 or a 4 seed, but we're definitely not looking ahead to that. We're focused on Franklin High School and trying to get a victory this week.
And Coach Melton, you and I have talked about this extensively. Your first year as a head coach obviously been challenging in terms of wins and losses. You've been through it. People might forget that you were a part of that. And I like to always mention this to Coach Coleman. I think he kind of wears it as a badge of honor now because where the program's at. You were part of that 0-10 season at Summit. Obviously, you won a state championship there last year. You were a very big part of that as a defensive coordinator. So it's been challenging, right, in terms of wins and losses. But the future's bright. You've got some young players who I know you're excited about. And you take things like that Brentwood game, you look at the score and go, hey, it didn't work out the way we wanted to. But you've got a freshman in Riley Jordan who returns a kickoff. I think it was 96 yards for a touchdown. Look, that doesn't happen much when you're talking 6A football with a freshman. So you've got to still be excited about that as well.
I mean, we are. I mean, it's challenging. You just got to keep going to work. And the kids have done a great job of that. They've come back every week. We work and we try to get better each and every week. And I think we're getting better. I think there's some things we're still working on. We've got to do a better job of coaching them on some things and get some things worked out. But I mean, you don't ever quit. Kids haven't quit. And even at Summit, and I've talked about this before, that 0-10 year, you never want to go through it. It's tough, but I think it really makes you evaluate everything you're doing. And it's in a crazy way. I guess it's probably looking back on it, it's probably one of the best years for me as a coach, and I know for Coach Coleman too, because we've talked about it. I think it makes you better if you approach it the right way and you learn from it. And I think this year will make hopefully the program in the future better. That may sound crazy, but I think if we can build on that, we can develop some depth, can learn some things from this season. Coaches, players, program from the inside and out of the program, just how things are going to operate and things like that. I think hopefully in the future it'll help us. But these seniors have done a great. We've got some young guys, but I think our seniors have done a great job of not quitting. I mean, it's tough when you're already out of the playoffs, and so we're just playing. We're playing to get better. We're playing to win. We're competitive. You got to stay competitive. You got to stay motivated. And Knowlesville's a great football team, and it's going to be a challenge. But we've kids have had a good week of practice so far. Hopefully finish that up. The kids are excited, and they'll be ready to play tonight against Knowlesville.
Hey, let's talk game history a little bit. And I commend you how you answered that question too, Coach Melton. Nobody likes going through seasons winning one or two games, but something I can say about you outside looking in, it's the same for Coach Derrick. You guys are guys that, and I respect this when I watch you, you can't necessarily tell how your team's doing when it comes to your demeanor. If you were 7-1, you'd be talking the way you're talking now. Your demeanor on the sideline would be the same. Coach Derrick, you're the same kind of guy too. And I know that for me personally, that was always kind of difficult. Probably wore my heart on my sleeve a little bit too much. So I commend you for that. And I know a lot of people have respect for that, the way you're going about your business. And again, Coach Derrick the same way. So I certainly appreciate that as the district athletic director. Let's talk a little game history. You played one time, which Coach Derrick talked about. Franklin with the 25-23 win in 2019. And what's interesting about this, and Coach Derrick, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong about this. I feel like what happened was you didn't play. It was a COVID situation, but it wasn't that you two couldn't play. There was a game earlier in the year. Coach Derrick, you had to end up having to make up a game, I think, with Tullahoma, and it actually allowed Franklin to add Page High School, which was kind of neat too. Is that how that worked, Coach Derrick?
Yeah, we had a game with Tullahoma that we had to reschedule, and then Coach Webb at the time was very understanding about having to not play that game in order to get our region game in. But I'm happy it worked out for Franklin being able to play Page. But yeah, that was the exact scenario that played out last year.
And Coach Melton, and really either one of you could ask. I'll throw it to Coach Melton here though. This is, I guess, a makeup game when it comes to that 2-year contract, or how's that working with your schedule and maybe playing going forward?
I mean, it was scheduled. It's scheduled for 2 years, I think, right, Coach?
Yeah.
I mean, they scheduled it as a normal game, so we'll play again next year at Franklin. So it was already scheduled when I got there, but it's on the normal schedule, not really as a makeup, but just as part of the 2 years.
Oh, I see. So it's almost like last year you marked it out, and now this is another 2-year contract.
That's correct.
Okay, great. Good. Love to see you guys playing, though. I think it's exciting. Hey, let's talk a little bit about last week's game. Nolensville, 22-40, dropped that game to Page. Page wins the region championship. That was a game that the lead changed, I believe, 3 times in the first half. It was 23-16 at the half. Obviously, Page with a little bit too much firepower in the second half. But when you're talking Nolensville, a couple of names that keep coming up. Walton, his name, doing a good job for you at quarterback. He's 22 for 34 last week, 239 yards, 2 touchdowns. Samson Johnson with another touchdown. Coach Derrick, obviously no moral victories. You've got a program that's way too strong to have moral victories at this point in time. But that's a pretty darn good team you played 2 weeks ago. And you do have to be encouraged by that first half performance because maybe you see them again later.
Yeah, like you said, definitely no moral victories, but at the same time, when you are competitive in a game like that, like I felt we were, you got to take those small victories and the things that we did well, we got to try to build off of that. Really, the difference in the ball game was they just made a few more plays than we did, and some of it was not necessarily what they were doing, but what we didn't do. But that's something that we got to get corrected. So I was encouraged with a lot of the things that are on that tape. Or on that film from the Page game. That quarterback's a special player for them, and he was hard all night. But we did a lot of good things, and we had chances in the ball game to really maybe separate ourselves and take the lead here or there. But just didn't make the plays we needed to when we needed to make them. But again, very encouraged with a lot of the things that I saw on the film, and I think we're moving in the right direction, and we're starting to play a lot better on defense. Got a lot of young guys playing over there, and then offensively, we're really talented. We just got to be able to put some things together and sustain drives and finish drives.
Franklin, again, 2 weeks ago, all these games were, all the football teams in Williamson County. The off week was our uh, fall break week, allowing people to get healed up a little bit, probably coming at a pretty good time if you're talking about trying to make a run here late in the season. Franklin, 42-7, dropped that game to Brentwood, and really one of the traditional WCS rivalries when you're talking about goes back in time, goes back playing for a while. Coach Melton, I'm curious, when you guys played that game, because this is your first time as the Franklin coach experiencing some of these rivalries. What's your take on that? Did that game, does that feel similar to the Centennial game? Is the rivalry the same, similar? They're all the same. What's your perspective on that when you guys played Brentwood?
It felt the same to me. I think, the excitement around it, the crowd and everything, a lot of it's the same. It's a region game. They're not too far. I mean, Centennial's close, but none of us are too far from any of us, so it felt the same on our end. I think kids were excited, and I know Brentwood was too. And they just, they took it to us early. They're a little more physical than we were, and we've got to do a better job of that on both sides of the football. Keep working on that. But I think Coach Finch is doing a great job over there, and they've gotten a lot better as the years progressed too, just like Nolensville has. So, speaking on Coach Derrick, that he ought to be proud of what he's seen on his film, because those kids are playing hard. And, offensively, you guys have kind of talked about it. They're really good on offense. Athletic, they got 4 or 5 guys on offense they can get the ball to, and they do well with the ball in their hands. So it's going to be a challenge for us defensively and offensively. But, we're just keep working and trying to get better and give it our best shot.
Yeah, well, certainly both of your teams are continuing to play hard. And, one of the things I've always loved about football, unlike some of the other sports, even you talking Coach Melton, you're out of the playoff race, but look, you're only guaranteed these 10 events. Football games are almost like events to me. There's such a build up to them. You're not playing 2 or 3 games a week. So I think it's pretty special with your sport, regardless of the play. Obviously, you want to be a playoff team and be a team that gets deep in the playoffs. But even when you're not, you've got these 10 events that everybody knows exist. And it's one of the few sports, maybe you guys haven't thought about this, I don't know, where you can not be a playoff team, but win your last game, which is kind of interesting. In some of the other sports, that last game is usually a loss or a state championship. So I always thought that's really interesting about your sport, that it happens that way. Hey, let's talk about this a little bit. Coach Derrick, we'll start with you with the region. You're sitting at 2-2 in the league. Obviously, you're not looking ahead, as you talked about. The game next week with Franklin County will ultimately determine third place. Let our viewers out there know what's the difference between third and fourth in terms of who your opponent may or may not be, and in that part of the bracket as well.
Well, it's interesting. The other side has got a lot of things that have to work out with Station Camp, Mount Juliet, and Green Hill the next 2 weeks. So we really don't have any idea of how that's going to play out. It could be a scenario where they end up in a 3-way tie. It just really depends on the next couple of weeks. But Station Camp, Mount Juliet, and Green Hill are the top 3 over there, kind of fighting it out for the region championship. So I imagine that, being the 3 or the 4 seed, we'd end up playing one of those 3.
And Coach Melton, actually, one more question for Coach Derrick. Talk about that move. You and I talked about this some last year too. The move from 4A to 5A. You were excited about it. You said, hey, we're going to be playing more teams maybe locally. Our program's ready to make that step up. Talk about how that's been this year.
Yeah, I think it's been good as far as, 5A in our region. Now, our non-region games, it's a very challenging schedule. And obviously, we're 2-2 in the region. So excited about that. But, I think football is football. And I think I said that when everybody asked me about the jump to 5A. Obviously, in 5A, you're going to have a little more depth, maybe a little more bodies. But it's been good. I think there has been a little bit of an adjustment period for us, and I think that's really just more about us playing some young guys and trying to get some guys that are first time starters, maybe playing up to their potential. So it's been good for us. Obviously, still got work to do, but the good thing, like I told our guys the other day, is we still got a chance to play a lot of games. You know, if we can continue to get better and we can continue to try to reach our potential, you know, we could be a really good football team. And you want to be playing your best football down the stretch here. So depending on how the other side of the bracket shakes out, we'll be excited to go play whoever we play. And then hopefully, you know, everybody's 0-0 in the playoffs, and we're going to do our best to go try to make a run.
Well, I know, Coach, there were lots of 4A schools that were happy to get rid of you guys in 4A and say, see you later, get into 5A. Coach Melton, let's talk about your team again. You know, you've got 2 games left out of the playoff picture. And I'm just curious as a coach, because, you know, if anybody's coached, they coach a long enough time, they're going to have some years like you're experiencing right now. You talked about your seniors still being locked in, still doing what you need them to do. How do you weigh that with also maybe giving some younger guys some reps too? Because let's face it, you got to have a little bit of an eye towards the future. How do you balance that as a coach, being loyal to those older guys, letting them still compete and doing what they need to do, but also giving some young guys a taste too?
Yeah, I mean, there's a definite balance there, but we've, you know, a lot of our young guys have gotten a lot of reps. You know, we've had, I think Williamson County does a great job with their JV and freshman schedules. We get to play each other, so we're getting a lot of good quality reps there. But a lot of those guys too have gotten some varsity reps, you know, and then we're playing the seniors and all that too. So it's a balance. I mean, you stay loyal to those guys if they're working hard and, you know, and they've done nothing to be replaced. I don't think you do that, you know, but I do think if there's a younger guy that's playing well and can give us a better opportunity, then he'll play too. I don't really look at grade level as being you know, I don't think you're entitled to start because you're a senior, and I don't think that's the way your program needs to work. I think it's just it's our job as coaches to put the best 11 on the field and make it a competition every week. You know, from senior to for us, for freshman, sophomore, junior, it doesn't matter. It's a competition. Everybody's got a shot, and we're trying to continue to get them to compete and approach it that way too. So I think that's the way we have to view it as coaches. But yeah, you know, like I said earlier, I'm definitely proud of these seniors and the way they've, you know, we could have folded it in, you know, 2 weeks ago or whatever, and they have not. And we've made a point this year, and especially with some things that happened at the beginning of the year, just making the most of every opportunity you get to play. Like you said, we've got 2 left, and we're going to make the most of those opportunities. We're going to enjoy it, have fun with it. You know, for most of these guys, this will be it for them. We've got, you know, 1 or 2 maybe that'll move on, maybe 3 that'll move on and continue to play. But we've got to make it fun for them, continue to make it fun for them, and have them enjoy this and make the most of these last 2 opportunities they get to play high school football. Because, I mean, as we know, you know, I think that high school football it's the best, probably the best time of your life, you know. I mean, just enjoying that and being with your teammates and your buddies and getting the opportunity to play on Friday night with the lights on, that's tough to beat. And so hope they enjoy it and hope they keep working hard for the next week and a half or 2 weeks, I guess, for tonight and next week's game, and then, you know, go from there.
Well, Coach, to your point there, I was talking to someone a couple of days ago, and they were talking about this professional athlete that they saw being interviewed. And this particular athlete said, the best time of my life was playing high school sports. And even for those guys, those 2 or 3 guys that move on, certainly that high school level is pretty darn pure. So definitely well said, and something that I've heard recently myself as well. Let's talk a little offense. Coach Derrick, we're going to start with you. Your quarterback, Kobe Walton, let's face it, he had to replace what I would describe as kind of a Nolensville legend. Ryder Gallardi did a great job for you. I know he was important to your deep playoff runs. Talk about his play and what he's doing as the leader of your offense.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think we knew Kobe had a lot of potential, and we knew that he could be a really good quarterback. But I think he definitely surprised us as coaches the way he's played this season. You know, he's distributing the ball to a lot of different people. He's making good decisions. I think he's got over 2,000 yards passing, maybe 17, 18 touchdowns right now. So been very productive. So again, I think we knew what we had with him, but it has definitely been a pleasant surprise to see the production that he's been able to do in his first year starting.
Yeah.
So, and replacing Ryder like you. I mean, Ryder's not an easy guy to replace. I mean, he was very productive as well, and it was a great leader for our football team. I think for Kobe, if anything, that he can maybe work on is maybe, his leadership traits. Kobe's a more mild-mannered, quiet kid, whereas Ryder was more outspoken. And you can lead in different ways, but that was what Ryder kind of was special was his leadership qualities. And not that Kobe's not a good leader, he just leads in a different way.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about this earlier too. Throw in the fact first year starter in 5A.
Yeah.
About your schedule being tough outside the region, so that's another challenge for him too.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, he's played some tough competition this year, that's for sure.
Coach Melton, your offense has struggled, obviously, but in terms of scoring points, but you and I've talked about this too, just the way your team is built, maybe something, I mean, look, it's about points, right? You got to score, but that time of possession, that's an important thing for your team too. I think, it's funny, not to, I've heard people saying this about your particular team. I don't mean that, but it's easy to look at it and go, okay, well, we're not scoring. Let's try to do something a little bit different. The way your team's built, you have to try to control the ball a little bit. You can't go out and fling it around and the clock stops and some of those kind of things. Time of possession, that's a real important thing to your team, right?
It is. I mean, you're right. That's how we're built this year. What we've got to do a better job of is avoiding 3 and outs. We've had way too many of those the last couple of weeks, and that just, obviously that's not good, And so we've got to do a better job of controlling the line of scrimmage and getting some plays and taking some time of possession and moving the ball, changing field position. We hadn't been able to do that. We got a couple things going early against Brentwood in that drive, got a first down, we're moving it, and then we have a mistake, snap the ball over his head and put ourselves in a hole. And we're just not built right now to overcome a whole lot of mistakes. We can't penalty here or there or bad snap, things like that. It's tough for us to overcome this year. So we've got to do a better job of just controlling that line of scrimmage, eating up some clock, trying to avoid 3 and outs, moving the football a little bit, changing field position. And that's what we've got to continue to work on and challenge our kids to do.
Let's talk a little defense here. Coach Derrick, I took a look at your schedule. In your losses, you've given up 30 points or more. Hey, this is not time to beat on you here. But what I was going to say in a positive, you've played some pretty darn good offenses too.
We have. We talk about BGA, Innsworth. Giles County is undefeated. Mentioned Page earlier. So, we've played some good offenses, yes. But the thing about us defensively is, I think, and even then the points may not indicate it, but they're starting to understand things, and they're starting to understand how things kind of fit together. And that's the most important thing about being good on defense is you can't just really know what you have to do. You kind of got to know what the guy next to you is doing too, and how it all fits together. And I think that the last couple of weeks I've really seen some growth on that side of the ball. It's obviously, as a defensive guy, I do not like giving up 30, 35 points a game. That is not a good thing. But at the same time, trying to be positive and see some of the good things that we're doing and take those small victories and build off of those is what we tried to do all along here. And I think you're finally starting to see that the last couple of weeks with our group on defense. And again, we got 2 or 3 sophomores that'll be out there starting at a time or playing at a time. And then even the juniors that are out there, it's their first year, playing under the lights on Friday night. So I think there's no experience greater than game reps, and there's no other way to get game reps than playing in games. And unfortunately, we've given up some points this year, but hopefully, like I said, we can start playing our best ball down the stretch here on defense.
Coach Melton, obviously the game against Brentwood was difficult, but you take a look at them, look at their stats, not only in your game, but other games. That's a team that can hurt you both ways, running and passing the ball. So obviously that was a pretty darn big challenge. Brentwood's a team that's definitely trending in the right direction. When they started off 1-4, I think those of us in WCS knew it probably wasn't going to stay that way because they had played such a tough schedule. New coaching staff, not really, but sort of, new head man, that they were going to have some growing pains too. But what are the things in these 2 final games? You got 2 games left. what do you have to do not only to get some momentum in these games, but as you're heading to the off season, getting ready for next year as well? What do you want to see out of your defense?
Well, I think, and Coach Derrick hit the nail on the head. I think game reps are the best reps, experience. So, I mean, even though we may have a senior or two out there, the experience, they may not have played last year, and we've got some young guys out there too. And I think he's right. I think a big part of defense is trust. Like, you've got to trust. You can't make every tackle, but you may make the play, right? If you fit right and it bounces to somebody that's unblocked, there's a trust factor there. And I think our guys they've gotten better at that. Still at times we're hesitant on some stuff still at times, but I think it's gotten better. And so what I'd like to see is us just to continue to work on that, continue to trust each other, become a little more physical these last two games, and continue to work on that. But getting those game reps, that's the thing about playoffs. If you get one playoff game, you're getting an extra game than a lot of other teams, So we're not going to get that this year. So we really got to continue to work on that tonight, next week, as we continue to go throughout the season. But I think the more you play together, these young guys, the more they trust kind of what you're trying to do. They believe in you, your system, the coaches, and they trust each other. And like Coach Derrick said, you got to kind of have an idea of what the other guys are doing too, and where they're supposed to fit and what their job is, and that. And so trusting that, and also helps you play faster. If you know he's going to be there, then you know exactly where to fit. And so that's kind of what defensively what we're looking at is just doing a better job of tackling, do a better job of getting the football, reading and reacting, setting edges, running alleys, but trusting each other to do our job.
Coach Melton, talk about this a little bit. I'm very intrigued by both of you talking about these game reps, but talk about this a little bit. You got your team last year. You're the defensive coordinator. You've got a pretty experienced team. You've got a chance to go deep in the playoffs. You talk about those game reps. Now you've got a little bit more of an inexperienced team. The playoffs aren't going to happen. Are you a little bit more physical in practice, getting maybe some more live-like reps than you would be with a veteran team, kind of comparing it to last year where hey, we've got a lot more games ahead of us? What does practice look like? Is it a little bit more, I guess I would call it competitive? And then also with your teams and your sport, let's face it, you've got a sport where it's a train wreck every play. So you've got to be careful about injuries and some of those kind of things late in the season. What's that look like with your team, maybe as opposed to a more veteran team, Coach Melton?
I think so. I think it's hard from a defense. It's hard to simulate sometimes another team's offense, the speed of it. I mean, right? Our scout team quarterback's not going to be near as good as Nolan's was quarterback, and the speed, and that's what they do. And unless that's what you do, it's kind of hard to simulate that. But you can still, you can get those reps and keep working on those things like you talked about. Make the most of these reps we've got left. So yeah, I mean, knowing it doesn't with a young team, you've got to make the most of every practice. You do with an old team too, but your guys, if they're fitting, if they're flying around, you can see it on Friday and they're giving you what you want. Then you can do some things different in practice than if they're not quite getting exactly what you want. So I think yeah, we've got to treat tonight. Our playoffs are tonight and next week. And so that's the way we're treating it. And the kids got to understand that. And we've got to keep putting some positive film out there and build some of that momentum going into the off season. But that just comes from, we've got to make the most of the reps we got left is what we've got to do.
As we wrap up here, and again, we're talking about tonight's game, Franklin traveling to Nolensville in a WCS matchup. Appreciate Coach Melton and Coach Derrick being here with us today. Coach Derrick, let me ask you this. This could be offensively or defensively. Give me a key or two for you guys to be successful tonight.
Well, I think number one, we got to take care of the football, and we need to, as I mentioned earlier, sustain drives and then finish drives on offense. And then defensively, I think it's going to come down to trying to stop the run. They got an athletic quarterback over there at Franklin, big offensive line. So our challenge will be to try to stop the run and eliminate big plays that we gave up against Page. And then, Franklin's really good on special teams. They're really coached up on the kick team. So I think that could be a key factor in the game as well. So I think, again, it's cliche. It's going to come down to all three phases. and playing sound and whoever makes the least amount of mistakes, I think is going to win the football game.
Coach Melton, how about for the Admirals?
I think what we talked about earlier, we've got to eliminate 3 and outs offensively for us and try to create a few on defense. I mean, and this has been a point of emphasis, and I know it is for everybody, but we continually got to try to put positive series together, right? Have a good positive, it may not be scoring on offense, but it may be changing field position, getting a couple of first downs, taking some time off the clock, putting the defense in a spot, and if we get in that spot defensively, if we get good field position, or if we flip field position, keeping it flipped and getting it back to our offense in good field position. So, those are things for us we've got to keep working on. That, the physicality part of it, try to create a turnover or 2 and get the ball back to our offense as many times as possible, and just continuing to work on those things. But I think eliminating some of these 3 and outs and putting a positive defensive series together with a positive offensive series, put 2 or 3 of those together, that'll help. And we've done that at times, and it's been good for us. Obviously, we've struggled with that too. So those are things we're going to work on.
Well, gentlemen, appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule. Good luck to both of you, not only tonight, but moving forward. And I really do appreciate you being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for joining us for the Coaches Show. We'll see you next time.